Hi friends, host Eric here, determined to make an efficient video on self-development. Impossible though that might sound, and certainly it's not the easiest thing in the world because people have different meanings when they use the term self-development and different purposes for talking about it, and different, naturally, going to have different conclusions as a consequence. Let me start by saying that there was a time when I would have expressed a decidedly negative opinion about self-development. I would have poo-pooed it as indulgent navel-gazing, or used some other form of dismissal to render it something I wouldn't have to consider. And of course, when I was doing that, it was because I was an alcoholic, and so I didn't want to have to travel any paths that might lead to me having to quit drinking, because I was very attached to my drinking, obviously. So, really, self-development for me began about 4 years ago, a little less than 4 years ago, when I quit drinking. And at the time, I didn't quite understand that I was on a self-development path. I assumed I was on a sobriety path. And while I've remained abstinent from alcohol for the duration of that 4 years, I never really was fully sober from the get-go. For the first 30 days or so, or more, I was smoking weed and taking Adderall when I quit drinking. So I did have a period of a few months of complete sobriety, and it just didn't work for me. I'm somebody who, well, I diagnosed ADHD, and what do I think about that? I think it's bullshit, basically, but it doesn't mean that I don't function better on speed, so I'm glad to get it. That's a complication in one's self that one must develop past or develop through. It was a complication for me with Alcoholics Anonymous, because my sponsor said, well, if the doctor prescribes it to you, fine, but just don't abuse it. Only take what the doctor prescribes. And I was like, no, where's the fun in that? It's like, fuck that. I don't like that. That's not how I use it. I have my own cycle of usage with what the doctor prescribes me. I don't take exactly as prescribed, hypothetically, in theory. But I take the amount prescribed in total in a month. So, I prefer to have cycles. And there's nothing wrong with that. But some people will tell you there is. I don't know. So, I'm going to try not to get quite so off track this time. I got a little musy last time as well. For me, then self-development began when I quit drinking, and continued as I rejected Alcoholics Anonymous in favor of a sustainable solution for me. And I think I'd recommend that for anybody, but I'm not the gauge of all knowing, as Kimberly says. So, okay, having quit drinking, I then proceeded to express myself a lot. I proceeded to extrovert my intuition. I proceeded to actualize externally, as INFJ Russian lady says. Is the nature of the extrovert intuitor, is to actualize externally. I didn't understand that's what I was doing at the time. I thought I was being very objective, thought I was being very analytical about ideas externalized from me, trying to make it as dry as possible for some reason. Thinking like that would be better because, well, I mean, I had all sorts of self-hatred and self-doubt and all kinds of shit like that. So, what ends up happening though, as you start to spend time talking about why people act like they do, why people talk like they do, what people ought to do, you spend a lot of time ideating about that. You inevitably apply it to yourself. Of course, it's where you really begin. And it affects you. It changes who you are. Now, for me, it's not just the ideating that was important. It was eventually garnering a certain amount of attention for it. I'm not a successful YouTube channel by any measure of that term. I've got 2,380 subscribers, or did earlier today. And, you know, it's slow growing. But the point is, those first few comments that I get where people would say, I love this video, I think it's great, or something like that, would make me cry. I mean, I was so starving for any kind of affirmation. I'd gotten out of a long marriage in which I had been shut down consistently for years. Some of the time with good reason, because I was drunk and couldn't really be trusted to express myself in ways that were going to be socially successful at all. But then, after that, still, as sort of habit, I was not afforded any legitimacy for anything within my own home. So much so that if I was outside in the garage and I was like recording a song or something, and Candace came back there to do laundry, I'd like jump and pretend to be doing something else. Because I just didn't want to face the judgment. So, it was incredibly liberating for me to experience genuine affirmation from random people in the world who were not telling me to shut my mouth and to stop doing this. You know? Which most people around me were. So, and most importantly, my wife and my best friend. So part of my self-development arc then was enabled by the general goodwill of people in the world who were nice enough to say something nice to me on my YouTube channel. It made it possible for me to resist the naysayers, increasingly so over time as their objections began to seem preposterous in the face of a larger number of people affirming me. It's hugely important. We talk and act and write and think and say stuff that suggests that there's a virtue in being a strong person who doesn't need the positive regard of others to stay the course, and who's stalwart in the face of public scorn or whatever. I mean, maybe after you've really internalized your fundamental okayness, I guess, maybe you could be that, and maybe it would be a virtue. But I can't imagine going back to that vacuum of anybody liking me that I lived in before. And, for anybody who feels that, and sometimes I think we all do, that we're alone and that nobody really cares about us, or that we're damaged and unlovable. That's where self-development needs to transition into community a bit. The raw room, which I'm in here alone with the bot, is something that's been rolling now for quite some time. It's an interesting phenomenon. It ebbs and flows in terms of how many people use it. It never seems to grow beyond about the size of one room. And yet, so many of the most important people of my life are associated with this channel and the raw room. People I've met in life, people I haven't met yet, but will. None of us can do it alone, nor should any of us want to do it alone. Do what? Fucking exist. Why would you want to exist alone? Why would anybody expect themselves to exist alone? And by alone, I don't just mean having people around, but having people who are being honest with you, who can listen to you, and if you do something stupid or annoying or whatever, can call it out without condemning. That's the thing. Can you call shit out without condemning the person? We all make mistakes all the time. And one of our most common mistakes as intuitives, probably, especially NTPs, is we can call out other people's bullshit without condemning them. But we can't call out our own bullshit without condemning ourselves. It seems to be systemic to the nature of NTPs. I like self-development. I like the idea of thinking and talking one's way into a more optimal state of being. And there are limits, of course. You can only think and talk your way into a more optimal state of being if you're not. There's a certain point when if what you need to do is some extroverted sense and do it shit. Talking and thinking about stuff can be a little bit part of the problem sometimes, But all I know is I've seen my life transform over the last almost 4 years from complete shit with a good job and a beautiful daughter who's fucking perfect for some reason, despite me. It's like a dream child beyond any dream I could ever have had. I don't know why I get so lucky in life, but I see myself transform from fucking just an extreme coward, running away from everything, to somebody who was scared but willing to mix it up, out there fighting, to somebody who got a little bit desperate in his excesses, looking for something, to somebody who found his dual and understands what it means to feel whole and satisfied in a way that I never thought was possible. So, if you're on this self-development path, understand that everyone's path is different from everybody else's path. That your story is going to be built around the reasons why you hate yourself. And the solution will be found in whatever manner of attainment and self-optimization you express. But if you doubt there's a way forward, don't doubt it. Nothing good happened to me until I was 42 years old. Thanks for watching Talking with Famous People, and don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.